To my high achieving and free spirited leaders who are also a bit overwhelmed, in this video, I'm talking about what it really means when you feel behind in life, especially as a leader, and how to rethink your timing, success, and self worth. If you've been watching others get promoted, pivot, move ahead, and you're wondering what's wrong with you, we're going to talk about it today. I'm Ebony, a high level corporate executive turned leadership strategist who infuses indigenous culture and frameworks into leadership and organizational strategies. And on this channel, I talk about the lifestyle, mindset, and skills of true leadership, how leaders can lead in ways that feels very much aligned with their purpose and their own inner working, how leaders can grow without sacrificing their well-being, and how they can reinvent themselves and be effective, grounded leaders. So if that resonates with you, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you're notified when I post a new video. So I saw Jay Shetty's recent video. If you're feeling behind in life, watch this exclamation point. And you all know Jay Shetty. He's inspirational and he presents a perspective that reflects many of my own beliefs, which are rooted in my training and experiences over the last 30 years, learning in indigenous wisdom-based communities from West Africa, Brazil, and the communities native to the United States. And his video resonated with me in so many ways. He spoke beautifully about how many of us are measuring our lives by outdated timelines and what he calls unspoken social clocks. So, in short, we want a certain level of success and believe that it needs to happen in a certain amount of time. And when that doesn't happen, it becomes a problem. So, when I think about where we are today, and I'm thinking about women in our 40s and 50s who are navigating our careers in the later half of our careers. And I'm thinking about job losses that have skyrocketed this year. Think about the 300,000 Black women that were let go from their jobs, very competent women with lots of talent and skills. And now, for many of us, we find ourselves dealing with themes related to maybe pivoting, but I think of it more as redefining who we are, what our contributions are, what our careers are. Essentially, we are facing how do we reinvent ourselves? And for some people, it is a process that feels very natural. Maybe some people were ready for it and it's not a big deal. But for other people, there is some shock and fear and resistance, which can make the process a bit more painful. So this topic related to having a certain level of success within a certain amount of time becomes amplified. And so I'd like to offer some reflection, especially for leaders who are navigating some kind of change or disruption and this need to reinvent yourself. So Jay talked about a few things, and you can watch the video. I encourage you to do so. It's a great conversation that he has. But he talks about how social timelines can create unnecessary pressure. True. How feeling behind often comes from looking outside of ourselves, what he calls the external metrics. True. And, he also talks about how people in their 20s and 30s are wired for lots of change, and that how life satisfaction increases when we tend to detach ourselves from self-worth and simply dive into whatever the moment is calling for. And I want to build on this because, especially for leaders in your 40s and 50s, so I'm talking to you Gen Xers, people who've been overlooked or disrupted later in life, what does that mean for us? Because if we're wired for exploration in our 20s and 30s, when we are in our 40s and 50s, we often have a lot of things that we're juggling. Sometimes we simply don't want to change. There is a comfort level that many of us have when we're in our 40s and 50s, and we just don't want anything to change. Even though it may not be what we want, it may not be bringing us the most fulfillment, but it serves some purpose for us. Yeah, I can remember a time when I was in my 40s and they had a very demanding job. And in some ways it was fulfilling, but in other ways it was not. But I didn't really want to manage anything else. I didn't want to have to disrupt or change anything because I knew that it would take some energy to pivot or to reinvent myself. And it would also take some courage. And so if that's where you are, I'd like to offer some reframing for you. And for many leaders, especially women, this is not about being late. It is not about having not achieved the things that you thought were important. It's really about navigating systems that didn't recognize your value when they should have. And I could do a whole video just on that alone. So if you're interested in that, put a comment below and I'll do a video on that, because that there's a lot of nuance in that and history and the key insight is that when that happens, we have the tendency to form certain beliefs about why the things that are happening. And whether it is internalized or whether it is externalized, many times it can result in frustration and it can result in a bit of loss of self-confidence, which is not what we want because it's impossible. It's very difficult to be a powerful leader and to achieve whatever you want to achieve without confidence. So let me say this, your timing isn't wrong. Whatever has happened, it's happened, right? Your timing is yours. I had a teacher, one of my mentors, who lived in Salvador Bahia in Brazil. And I would ask her questions about things that were happening in my life and get advice from her, including things about work. And she would say, she'd kind of giggle a little bit to herself and she'd say, oh, you'll learn by living. You learn by living. You know, sometimes I would wonder, like, why didn't I see this thing happening? You know, this thing that was happening at work, this, chaos or, being overlooked for a promotion, or I talk to different leaders and I hear all these different stories. And one of the things I hear all the time is, why didn't I see this coming? Or I thought this was going to go a different way. And what I will say to you is, your timing is yours. Look for the signposts, look for the signals, be honest about it, and ask yourself, what is it telling you? My mentor, my teacher, she said, you learn by living. She was absolutely right. Pay attention to what is happening in your life so that you can be clear-headed and process it and do what you need to do. I remember after I had my sons, I have 2 children, and I was on this trajectory that was going up. I was working in corporate, and I took some time, I worked, but my focus shifted. I wasn't focusing on the promotion. I wasn't focusing on, even 20 years later, I was focused on being a mother. I mean, I still did great. I still excelled at work. But there was something about shifting my focus that helped to strengthen the skill sets that I had. It took the pressure off. And sometimes when we take the pressure off, the things that are most important come into focus, and our natural talents and skills have an opportunity to thrive. So that was an example for me. It was one of the first times in my career that I can remember that there was something inside of me. There was something that I controlled in my thinking, in my focus, in my perspective about work that would later be very useful for me, because all the things that happened during that time and my natural abilities shining led to those promotions that I'd wanted earlier. So I want to offer 3 grounded reflections for success, because that example that I just gave feeds into one of my, at least to my first reflection. And that is to get present. To get present. See, the brain is stronger when it's not replaying old moments. And there is a lot of neuroscience research from Harvard and other places that shows that when leaders stop replaying the past and anchor in the present, the brain becomes much more flexible and resilient and capable of clear decision making. So going back to this, thinking about time, in indigenous cultures, time is not linear, it's cyclical. So this is the reframing. If you begin to think about your accomplishments and what you want in terms of cycles, and when you begin to think about cycles as cycles of learning, work becomes a channel through which you're learning. A promotion could be a channel through which you're learning, but the learning, the real learning, is what is happening in the act of being present to what that particular cycle is there to teach you, how it's there to shape you, how it's there to give you feedback. So that's a reframing that becomes very, very important. Indigenous wisdom long taught that when we stay trapped in the past, we lose access to not only clear thinking, but to our intuition, because the intuition is rooted in our ability to stay present in the moment. And that's where the guidance lives. So when you bring your attention back to now, you are engaging the brain and your power returns. Neuroscience confirms what indigenous wisdom has always known, that the brain and the human spirit function best when we're fully present. So how do you do this? You're like, okay, yeah, that sounds all woo, whatever. So how do you do it? And there are a couple of ways that I like to do it. A lot of people meditate, because meditation has shown to rewire the brain and strengthen the pathways to help us have better attention, better emotional regulation, and resilience. And that's why it's been practiced for thousands of years across many wisdom traditions. That's why the top very successful leaders talk about how they have some kind of reflection or meditation practice. Another way that I really like is mindful walking. And I like this because it engages the whole body and the mind. So for some of us, it's very difficult to sit still. And I hear many people say, I can't meditate. I got all these thoughts flowing through. Okay, so let's move the body. That's a great way. It's good exercise anyway. And I'm not talking about speed walking. I'm talking about walking and being fully present in the moment. So it means you are attuned, you're tuning into what you see right now and what you hear. Maybe what feelings, what's coming up for you, aware of your thoughts, but walking and just being mindful, not judging, just being mindful, mindfully walking. Those are 2 really good ways to get present, to get into the present moment. Second, I want you to redefine what success is. Is success really the promotion? Or is success developing some skill set that you have and leaning into that and contributing in some way, whether it's in the current job or a new one or something else? Redefine the metric. Think about, maybe part of the success journey becomes about just like being able to identify the cycle we're in, because it helps us to really understand how to lean into what's available for us. Think about it really simply. Like when you are in K-8 school, it's a lot different than being in college or working. But if you're at the age of K-8, and that's the cycle you're in, this cycle of learning foundational and basic skills, but you are out trying to do college level, or you believe you should be doing college level or working, there's a bit of a misalignment there. So recognizing the cycles it's about alignment. So if your old success metric was, did I get promoted this year? Maybe the new thinking is, what level of leadership capacity am I building right now? Or what skill set am I building right now? The third thing is get into community. And I don't mean codependence and getting into community that is going to reinforce some of those old paradigms. I'm talking about being in a community that reflects back to you the truth of who you really are. Because when we're alone, we don't always see ourselves clearly. And it's very easy to be in our heads, replaying the past, which we already said don't do that, but replaying the past and telling ourselves stories about what's happening. And being in community gives us support, because it's always good to know someone has your back. But it is also good for someone to be able to reflect back to you what the truth about what they see is. It helps us to get out of our heads. So, primary takeaway from this: you are not behind. You are not behind. Life is a journey, and you're simply becoming on that journey. And the moment you stop thinking about how somebody else got promoted or being aligned to a particular timeline, that's when you get your power back. So by taking time and being in the present moment, being in community, and redefining what success really is, that's where the true power is. So I'd love to hear, where are you redefining success right now? What's no longer working for you, and it just has to go, and there just has to be a different way, and you're starting to think about success differently? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear. And if you're in a season of reinventing yourself and figuring out your own leadership, maybe you are on this trajectory of getting promotions and rising higher, maybe deciding how you lead and what's best. I've created a short quiz for you to take. It helps you understand your natural rhythm and strengths. It's the Wise Leadership Archetype Quiz. I invite you to take it. It can be very useful in times of change. I'll include a link in the description. You can visit ebonyadamsmonk.com/leadership-archetype-quiz to take the quiz, or you can go to my website, ebonyadamsmonk.com, go to shop, and then scroll down and you'll see take the free quiz. You can go there to take the quiz, or click the link that I'll leave in the description. Take it. It's a moment of reflection, and has proven to be very helpful for people just to understand their natural capability for leadership. And I'm talking about leadership in a very well-balanced way. that is rooted in our natural abilities and strengths and the way that we process the world. So remember, friends, we are all walking our own path, and I want you to honor your path. It is critically important. No one has any greater wisdom than what you have within yourself. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and share with a leader that you know can use this. I'm looking forward to reading your comments. Until later.